15. Tracks like Brian's Lament or Queen reference your deceased parents, specifically your mother's illness. Is it emotionally draining to record, or was it emotionally draining recording and performing those songs? No, actually, by the time I recorded Brian's Lament, um, I had already begun to come to terms with everything that had happened. It was just during the holidays, and I just needed to get it out. Queen was recorded before Brian's Lament, and it was written before it was recorded, of course. The writing process was much more difficult. Um, the writing process was much more difficult. It took me 5 hours to write. Not because I had to think so much about it. It actually flowed like water, to echo my tears. It was just, a very cathartic song, yet challenging song in the sense of me having to face the reality that I hadn't fully absorbed, because it hadn't quite been a year when I was writing it, since my mother had passed. So, I don't want to say it was draining recording it, not even performing it. I performed Brian's Lament in New York, and it was actually very powerful. I felt more power than I did it emotionally draining me. 16. You once said it's easier for you to write from another character's perspective. What did you mean by that? Well, sometimes the songs are about me and sometimes they're not. So I make up fictitious characters that live out scripts that may identify with other people or that I've heard other people go through, and I try to become that character and embody not just the lyric. That's one thing about my albums. I try to make sure that with each song you get, the the essence of the character with each song. I mean, you really get a different energy from each song. You not just get the sound of the song. It's like, for example, Brian's Lament. You get a feeling of, somberness and more operatic. It seems more of a libretto than it does, an intro. So, writing from another character's perspective also is liberating because you don't have to worry about if people are going to think it's you or not. That's not for you to decide, and you shouldn't rob them of that. It just means when you write from another character's perspective, it's sometimes from the outside looking in, writing third person, you're not as biased about your concerns about your personal feelings towards their thoughts of you. That's what I meant. 17. BSFF rated R talks about anti-gay bullying and fighting back against it. What do you think can be done to stop the trend of suicide among gay teens? I think just communication, more resources that are available and promoted. I think there's a lot of artists that just kind of stray away from that because they just don't want to either be a role model or either be associated with gay or lesbian themes, particularly gay males. Just because of cultural dispositions and idiosyncrasies, honestly. It's just a matter of people using their platform to, even if they're not directly doing anything for the teens, they can still use it to inform them and direct them in the right direction as to how to do something else besides resorting to killing oneself. And you wouldn't believe how insensitive so many people are that they actually get a kick out of the suicides. So you would think we were in the 50s. You really would. During the civil rights era, 60s, As one of the few openly gay black artists, do you see yourself as a role model for LGBT youth? Inevitably so, yeah, I do. Of course, each one has to take their own path, but I'm a role model to let them know, this is all of me and you can be all of you. And there's nothing more powerful than walking in your truth. Just be respectful and careful and mindful and spiritual, you know. Um, More than a role model, I would love to be a mentor. Um, from afar, there's so many people that, I would love to be able to interact with, but just by them seeing my choices and my resilience, perhaps it'll resonate with them and help them to come to terms with, in their time, when it's the right time, because everyone comes to terms with their who-ness much later than their wetness. So, yeah. 19. My fellow man with chaos talks about building a bridge between the black, gay, and straight communities. What do you think it would take for that to happen on a mass scale? I hate to be cynical or even pessimistic, but I just doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's going to take at least another decade, and a few more things that happen to the overall planet for people to get out of their very limited thinking. I mean, a song's not going to change the world, but it can start conversations. And that, my fellow man, was basically just, to start dialogue. I don't see it ever really, because, religion has a lot to do with that. The misunderstanding of written text and phobia. I have yet to see a spider, wake up in the morning and aim to attack someone in an aggressive nature. Most animals are innocent. They're just in a big world, and they just, they do what they have to do to survive. But it's not like they wake up, a lion wakes up too, with the intent to go find a human being and eat him and mutilate him. It's usually you're in their environment. There's usually something else outside of that, but it's not a malicious attack. So, we'll see. Maybe the dialogue will get people to think twice about it. And I thought that song brought out a lot of great points. And Chaos is a very talented artist, hip hop or otherwise. He's just really, really bold. That's what I dig about him. 20. Since you've come out, have you faced any discrimination within the music industry? I have faced prejudice more than I have discrimination. People think racism and prejudice are synonymous, but prejudice has no race attached to it. It's more of a preconceived notion or prejudging someone based off of past events or what you assume their walk of life means to you. So I've experienced more prejudice prejudging me than I have discrimination as to, okay, we can't let you do this because you're gay, or you're not, well, not like that, not in that way, not yet. I hope I don't, but I think the majority of the people in the industry respect truth. This is maniacal as the music industry can be. They can't fuck with the truth. 21. What are the advantages and disadvantages of being an independent artist? It's so interesting that you would ask this, particularly now. The disadvantage is not being able to depend on a machine to handle a lot of the marketing and distribution. But then again, distribution is not even the problem now, at least if you're choosing and opting not to use physically produced CDs. It's actually a blessing being independent in that regard, because there's less overhead and there's not a bunch of thousands of CDs sitting up in your garage somewhere. It's just, it's less overhead. The disadvantage is, are much greater than I anticipated. But the advantage is I get to be exactly what I want to be. I get to make the kind of albums I want to make. So, in that regard, I love it. It's a much harder road. You have to work your ass off. You have to keep it rookie, and you have to really keep your nose to the grind. And that's something I'm willing to do because I've always done it. There's always been an independent edge to everything I've done. Even with commercial success, I've always kept that underground, direct marketing grassroots thing as a part of my MO. And ammo. 22. What can fans expect next from you? I don't know. I'm exploring a lot of options right now, and we'll know what that is by summer of 2011. It's too early to really say because the industry every day is crumbling and becoming something that no one knows, what the hell to do. So my plans may change because of the entire industry's plans changing and technology increasing, every 6 months. So there may be some new medium that I'll be able to share my art. So it's really hard to say. But if I was to take a guess, it would definitely be more dance-oriented music and independent films. I think that's what will be next.